Is overnight RV parking still possible in 2022? Yes, we share our resources and some tips and ideas for getting free overnight RV parking wherever you are. This is RV Miles.
This podcast is sponsored by LL Bean, who makes it easy and fun to simply step outside. That might mean breaking a speed record in a rugged, built-for-fun Sonic snow tube, walking an extra block in a warm, weather-resistant down jacket, or just taking a breath on your doorstep before cozying up in a quilted sweatshirt. For however you experience the outdoors, shop clothing and gear at llbean.com. Be an outsider.
Welcome to episode 232 of the RV Miles podcast. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby, and we are two full-time travelers who, along with our three boys, have been crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk about everything from RV news to travel destinations, our national parks, and a whole lot more.
I'm excited about the show because I think this is something that's been on the top of a lot of people's minds. They feel like free overnight RV parking, the ability to sort of just go and stop wherever you want is going away. And there is some truth to that is getting harder and harder, but we've got some resources for you to talk about later on in the show. But we wanted to start off with a couple of things that came up in the RV Miles Facebook group. The first one was a question about the treatments that you put in your RV's black tank. You know, the liquids or packets that you put down in the toilet. And a lot of people really like this brand called Happy Campers. It's very, very popular. And some people noticed that recently they've put on their packaging and on their Amazon listing that it is no longer for sale or for shipping to the state of California. And there's a lot of questions to why that is the case.
Were they questions?
Well, a lot of people, California is often the first to make environmental type regulations, and this is no exception. But there is actually a really good reason for this. It is a little bit different than some politicians just taking away stuff that you like. Actually, the RV parks requested this. So I wanted to dig a little bit into this. There are certain chemicals that when you put them into your black tank and then they end up going into the septic system at the RV park, they actually can cause the septic system to fail. Because the smell that you're getting, the smell of that is bad coming from your black tank is poop, right? But it's not only your poop, it's bacteria's poop. And a lot of these treatments kill the bacteria so that the smell doesn't get worse, and then they have scents to cover it up and all that sort of stuff. Well, when you kill the bacteria, you kill the park's septic system's ability to break all that stuff down, which is key to making a septic system work, right? So there are different types of holding tank chemicals. Some of them kill the bacteria, and some of them are enzymes that are actually meant to break the poop down faster. They actually help the bacteria. That's the kind that is usually pretty good. And you'll often see them as listed as California safe or whatever. But you can't get sucked up into things like it lists organic or formaldehyde free. Formaldehyde is one of the major chemicals that actually kills bacteria that is in some of these. That's not what's in Happy Campers, but anyway, the RV parks in California, through their association, Camp Cal Now, we reported on this, I think, last year at some point. They approached the legislature and asked them to put a bill together to ban certain chemicals from being sold, including formaldehyde, and there's a list of some other ones. Happy Campers doesn't list what they have in their formula. It's proprietary, but it is safe for humans and all that sort of stuff. They do say they don't have formaldehyde in it, but obviously something on that banned list from California is in there. Anyway, I think the best thing for you to do wherever you are in the country, if you're going to use holding tank treatments, to find something that is formaldehyde free for certain, and actually look for California friendly. I mean,
Yeah.
that Ford makes one called Camper Fresh that is California approved, and but it, you know what? You also don't have to use chemicals, right?
No, just use water. Give it a
Usually-
good flush after every dump if you can. I mean, I know for a lot of us who like to be state park campers, federal campers, and boondockers, we're always trying to conserve water. So that, can be a little bit of an issue. But just give it a good flush when you get to that dump station. Don't just fill it once. Maybe think about filling it twice, maybe even a third time. Just, there are ways that you can prevent that smell that nobody likes without having to use anything that you're putting in the tank.
And if you're on full hookups, just use lots and lots of water with the toilet.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be flushing a gallon of water down with the toilet for sure every time.
Sure, absolutely. I don't stand there and be like, was this a gallon? I mean, now that said, we actually don't have that problem
Yeah,
anymore.
now that we have a
So,
composting toilet,
we don't
it's
even think about that.
Not an issue.
Nope.
The other thing that came up in the group was from Eileen, who asked a question about rain on your travel day. If rain is in the forecast for your travel day, do you close the slides that night before in order to keep the exterior of the slides from being all wet when you bring them in? If it's raining when you bring your slides in, it squeegees some of the water off through the seals, but you're going to have water dripping around the slide in your RV. And it's hard to reach the top of some of these.
It's hard to reach the side on some of them as well. That is not something that we have ever done.
We have done it. We've done it once. I remember and this was your idea. It was going to rain, and you decided that you wanted to bring in the living room slides the night before.
Yes.
We can't bring all of our slides in, but we brought the living room slides in order to give us a little bit of a heads up on that.
Let me just go ahead and pat myself on the back there for that. But that is for those of us who need to have slides out in order to exit our bedrooms. If we were to bring in this kitchen slide, we would all be trapped in the back.
Yeah.
Now, we have the app, and in theory, we could quickly put the kitchen slide back out and get everybody out and going. But that is not, that's a tough one for me to
obviously
answer,
you can
I
only
guess.
really do it if you have full access. And people with motorhomes, they have this ability for sure. And I think that's a big part of the reason why motorhome owners get up and go right away, because they've already done a lot of that stuff overnight.
I think the reason why I liked having this question on the podcast this week, even though we personally can't talk about it from a lot of experience from that standpoint, was just sort of the aha that it brought to a lot of people in the group, but then also a little bit to me thinking, that is such a good idea, because we all, even the littlest bit of water sometimes in these rigs, and especially if you're doing it over and over, and especially if you're in the South in the spring, I mean, the amount of storms that we have been putting up with over the last 8 weeks has just been shocking. I think that, having that option to bring in when you can just makes everything easier, and also it just protects the rig.
Well, it's not just water either, because a thunderstorm, for instance, often brings along with it a lot of leaves and stuff. I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast last week, but when we left the campground we were staying at for an entire month, I had to spend a lot of time cleaning off our roof. There was just tons of stuff up there, and I did it 2 days before we left.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about this, yeah.
And then the day we left, there was a ton of stuff up there again.
Hey, do you remember, and this is, again, talking about silly, not thinking ahead, things that we have done. Do you remember over the winter when we were camping and all of the slides had ice on them? Mm-hmm. And we were getting ready to leave.
That was rough.
There was no bringing those slides in. And certainly at some point the ice had melted enough that we could have, but then we would have had a big chunk of ice sliding off the side of the kitchen slide and just melting in the living room, in the kitchen. And so that was, again, another example where we could have closed those slides up, because it was actually during a period where we weren't staying in the rig. It had gotten so cold in the Quad Cities. We were at your parents' that hindsight, we were like, man, we should have brought all these slides in.
There are a lot of cases to be made for slide toppers.
Yeah.
People recommend them often, but our big issue is still, it's always wind. Like the wind has been terrible here, and I don't know that we would have wanted to have slide toppers here in this really bad wind out on this island jetty, whatever we're on right now.
Yeah, I think they would have absolutely gotten torn up, especially in that storm we had yesterday where we were getting hit like from behind with 60-mile-per-hour winds.
At the least, they would have been really loud.
Yeah. It was already loud in here.
If you have questions like that, the RV Miles Facebook group is a really great place to chat about them and get some information. So feel free to join us over there.
Sometimes there are questions we don't have the answer to because it's just not a part of our lifestyle.
We're not experts.
No, we're not experts at all. If you just listened to this segment, you were like, boy, these two, they don't even know what they're doing with their slides.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about overnight RV parking and a lot of resources and tips for you to help you find that spot for just an overnight stay out on the road.
Yeah, and I'm going to go see what the kid who's trying to slither his way across the floor while we're recording needs from me. We'll be right back.
Chances are you've seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox has been designing and manufacturing some of the best towing products in the industry. Blue Ox is everywhere: highways, campgrounds, anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. Blue Ox produces award-winning tow bars and base plates, plus a full line of weight distributing hitches and a new lineup of adjustable ball mounts. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. To learn more about how Blue Ox can make your travel adventures even more stress-free, visit blueox.com. Electrical surge protection is one of the cheapest insurance policies you can provide for your RV, and the Power Watchdog Smart Surge Protector, made by Hugest Autoformers, beats the competition with field replaceable surge modules. With other brands, when the surge protector takes a large surge or a spike, you have to throw it away. The Power Watchdog can be brought back to life with one small affordable part you can replace yourself. They'll even give you a free surge module in the first 2 years and now have a limited lifetime warranty. Use the coupon code RVMILES, all one word, for 10% off your order at HughesAutoformers.com. That's code RVMILES for 10% off at HughesAutoformers.com.
We're back, and it is time to talk about overnight RV parking.
Yes.
Now, a few, I say about a year ago, there was somebody had put a study out about Walmart overnight parking and how it was going away. And it was a big story that was circulating around. And it was basically showing that over like the last 10 years, 50% of parking at Walmart, so overnight parking, had gone away. And what that survey didn't take into consideration was that the vast majority of the new Walmarts being built over the last 10 years have been Walmart neighborhood markets, or they've been in cities. So I don't think that told the whole story. And in fact, if you look at what's available for parking at Walmarts, it doesn't seem to me to be that different than it was when we started. There are certainly places where it has begun to go away a little bit. And usually that is because of local ordinances and not because of Walmart. And often Walmart doesn't own the parking lots. Often they lease them from either a landowner or they lease them from the city. So sometimes it's not up to Walmart. And in fact, where we just parked.
Perfect example. They had signs everywhere that said no overnight parking except for Walmart trucks. And we had called prior to getting there because we had read some conflicting reports on overnight RV parking. And so we called, we were able to speak to someone who gave us a confirmation that it was okay to do so. But then even when I got there, I felt nervous, and I decided, look, I was going to go inside and I was going to have someone look me in the eye and tell me that it was okay.
Right below the sign.
Yes.
I mean, we're right in front of it.
Yeah. So I did go in, and I did. And she said to me, I said, okay, I just wanted to make sure because I saw the sign. And she said, yeah, I know. We go back and forth on this all the time. there's no real policy on what we're doing. So we're just letting people stay. So again, I don't know if that is just an individual store by store or if across all Walmarts, there's just no real decision on what they want to do regarding overnight parking. But again, when it comes to a Walmart, it is always best to try and call if you can and then have a backup to Walmart.
And there were some temporary issues at certain businesses, including some Walmarts during COVID, especially where, there are fewer employees. They didn't want their employees having to go pick up trash a lot and stuff like that. And the parking lots were already a problem with people just throwing their rubber gloves on the ground and stuff. Not necessarily RVers, but just people in general.
Masks, things like, not caring for the land. I mean, here we talk about this all the time. It's the same with public lands and boondocking. Abuse it and you lose it.
So there are a lot more people RVing now. We know this to be true, and this could cause some businesses some concern over this. So, there are lots of keys to us keeping this alive, including respecting the landowner's wishes and following some basic rules like not setting up a campsite, not cooking outside, and all that sort of stuff.
Don't put your awning out. Don't set up your chairs. You're just there for the overnight.
When we were in Montrose last, that Walmart, there were like 3 RVs that they were set it up like it was a campground.
They set it up like they were at a rally.
Yeah.
Like they had all decided they were going to rally at the Walmart and that's what they were going to do. So now you might be saying to yourself, Jason, Abby, I don't want to just stay at a Walmart. What are some other options here? Do you have anything else?
Well, thankfully, I think there are more options now than there ever have been. There are still more people using them, but there are more options. One of them that people have used for a long time has been truck stops. And there's a lot of back and forth on whether you should use truck stops and rest areas because truckers have such strict rules on where they can park and when they have to park and how long, their drive day is. So they really need to park when they can. So it's also not fun to stay at a truck stop. So we generally recommend you don't stay at a truck stop.
Well, because you're parked around others who are running their engine all night. I mean, it's just very loud. It's very active. There's a lot of trucks coming in and out. For us, it's sort of the very, very, very last option. Now, that said, some truck stops like Love's are starting to put in hookup spots specifically for RVers.
Love's has been rolling this out for several months, and they're continuing to do more of it. They're putting actual, they're parking spots. They're not campsites, although they are going to actually be building campgrounds on Love's property as well in some places, like sort of a
summer destination,
a quick overnight campground. But they're putting in parking that has full hookups for you to stop over the night at some Love's truck stops. Now it's kind of expensive, over $40 a night for parking at a Love's. It's great to have full hookups, but you're still dealing with all the noise, all the light, the smells, and all of that sort of stuff.
I would at that point, and we're going to get to it in just a second, but if I'm going to pay, $20 or $40, I would rather do something like a Harvest Hosts, even though I know they're not always going to be hookups. Now, that said, some do offer it, but I would rather spend that money there with the hope of getting a good night's sleep so that I can be fresh for driving the next day.
Yeah, and rest areas are a similar thing, and they're still an option. We have stayed at a rest area.
Oh yeah,
or
several
two.
times.
In terms of being in the way of truckers, it really depends a lot on where you are. We've stayed at rest areas where the parking lot was nowhere near half full overnight.
Well, some rest areas are also dividing up the space and having designated RV parking section and then a trucker section. So this is something we've started to notice a little bit more with the newer rest areas that are being built. They're becoming a little bit more accommodating for both types of traveler. And I don't know that a trucker is necessarily a traveler, but I'm going to stick with that. And so I think that, again, that option is great to have because, like you were talking about, you start to be a little nervous taking a potential spot from a truck driver who really needs it.
A lot of this depends a bit on your size too. If you are in a camper van or a small rig or truck camper or something like that, you can always park with the regular vehicles and you're not a problem when it comes to that.
Yeah, we're not that.
But you do have to make sure that state allows it. And you can, some of the resources we're going to talk about in a minute, you can find some of that information, but not every state allows you to sleep overnight. A lot of them say no camping, which is different because camping, they're trying to say, don't set up a tent on our grounds here, right? But some specifically say, they have a limit for how long you can stay, or whether you're allowed to park overnight or not. But most states, you are allowed to park overnight at a rest area. And don't just look at just the rest areas. Look at also like the visitor center. Usually when you cross the state line on an interstate, that's usually a great spot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So those are non-membership type options.
Now, other things have been growing and growing dramatically, and one of those is Harvest Hosts. Harvest Hosts, if you're not familiar, is an organization that you pay a membership fee to. It's I believe it's $99 a year now.
Yes.
And you pay them a membership fee, and it allows you access to their website and their app full of places where you can stay overnight, usually places like farms, wineries, museums. Sometimes it's really urban museum type places and stuff too. They have been working so hard to grow dramatically the network of Harvest Host locations out there. And, just like any other option, they can be hit or miss. Some are amazing, some are not.
Yeah.
You are expected to patronize that business. They usually say you should spend at least $20 at the business. But, if it's a winery, go in and buy a bottle of wine. If it's
we'll be lucky if I get out spending only $20.
If it's a museum, you should, go to the museum or buy something in their gift shop. It is not necessarily, a free thing. It's definitely not a free thing. And it's something that, it's kind of a fun thing to do. Like you want to look at it as like, this is a destination for me to do something at.
Yeah, I feel like I look at it as though it's, I don't know if this is the right word, but like almost like having a built-in attractions membership for RVers.
Yeah.
So you get to go across the country and you get to stay at different attractions or locations, maybe places you wouldn't normally go to. Or you know what? If you're already buying that bottle of wine, then here you go. You have a place to sleep for the night and enjoy that bottle of wine. And then you get to go in and support a local business. I think that that's also a really important component of Harvest Hosts is the ability to support on the local level as you travel around the country. Now, that said, it's really, really important that you really read some reviews and stuff about some of these places. We had our most recent Harvest Hosts experience tanked pretty bad on us. There wasn't a very clear definition of what they meant by their business hours in the listing. And we had sent in a request about 2.5 days before we wanted to arrive. It was open and available on the calendar, and we never heard anything back. And so, that piece of it, when there are going to be some that, have very, very, very limited communication abilities, or maybe you're not in the office as often. And those to me are ones that I find a little bit frustrating about Harvest Hosts, because the idea is sort of being that these can be sort of last minute travel options. And when there are people who come into this organization and they're only in the office maybe 5 hours a week, I think it's very, very hard to book that last minute. And then there should be sort of this idea that if you can only be in the office, this often to answer these emails, then you need to be only allowing bookings week out in advance, 2 weeks out in advance, whatever. minor inconvenience, and we ended up at the Walmart instead.
But you kind of wait. You're
But-
like, okay, we put this in, and then you've got to wait to hear back, and then you're waiting, and you're waiting. You're like, do I book
Yeah.
something else? Do I figure? So you have to have backups. Whatever you're doing, if it's going to be a free spot, you need to have backups. If it's a Walmart,
Yeah.
you might get to the Walmart, and you might find you can't get into the Walmart. You don't. There's no way to drive into the Walmart,
Or they'll say, hey, this week we've decided people can't camp here.
or you just don't feel safe. You might not feel safe at a certain Walmart and want to move on,
Or it's
Cracker
packed.
Barrel, or there are other businesses like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops that RVers often use. And we had our generator stolen at a Bass
Yep.
Pro Shop boondocking overnight, and although it felt safe, it wasn't.
Yeah, we left the Cracker Barrel to go back to the Cabela's, and now I wish we had stayed at the Cracker Barrel. It's a lot of things to piece together, and you can totally do that. But again, even with a Harvest Hosts, there's no guarantee you're going to hear back. Like, sending in a request is not a guarantee of a reservation. So I think, it's just really important for anyone who's not a member yet to understand that, because I think if that had been my first experience with Harvest Hosts, I would have been really turned off by that. And I would have thought, well, what is the point of this, and what is the point of this membership? So just keep that in mind if you have not joined yet.
So another resource is very similar, and it's actually owned by the same company, Boondockers Welcome. We have loved Boondockers Welcome the times we have used it. And a lot of people are apprehensive about it because you're staying on someone else's, a private person's property, not a business. You're staying on private property, and do you have to talk to that person and all that sort of stuff?
It really stresses introverts out.
Yes.
Like, introverts get really stressed out by Boondockers Welcome.
And I'm very, very introverted. Like, me being the person to go into Walmart and talk to the manager, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah,
right?
you were so happy that I went and did that, and I was shocked that you said that to me, because to me it just seemed like I just wanted to confirm and speak to someone, and they were so happy to talk to me, but you were just like, I could never do that.
But so Boondockers Welcome is a very similar thing where you stay on somebody's. It might be their they have a large backyard, and they might have just a very small driveway, and you can only park a small motorhome in it or whatever. But our experiences have all been just such pleasant people that respect your space, but also talk to you a bit. And we've had people offer us like their leftovers and stuff, or they dessert or whatever.
It's just like being at a campground a little bit.
Yeah.
You get to know your neighbors, and then everyone goes and does their thing or comes together. Like, you feel it out, you get the vibe, and it's nice. I mean, it's nice to break that up a little bit, and just the hospitality of people that host.
Yeah,
is
they're doing
always,
it free.
I know, it's always so amazing to me, because they're just so kind and so genuinely happy that you are there. It's not an inconvenience to them at all. And
grumpy people would never be Boondockers Welcome hosts. So if you're concerned about that, like it weeds them out, because it's all they get in return is a free membership to Boondockers Welcome, so they can go in turn do it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's a great program. We've just had such good experiences, and it's in the same way as Harvest Hosts. You put in a request, that person can deny you or approve you based on your rating, the size of your rig, all that sort of stuff. There's a whole lot of benefit for everybody to be nice to each other, right? And there are reviews that you can review and all that sort of stuff.
All right, so moving right along, let's talk maybe about the this one and this one together, since they're a little of the same.
Well, last week I fresh tanked the Togo app because I was talking about the button that you can click to get RV maintenance. If you are a member of the Togo app, if you're a member of Road Pass,
the Plus,
you have the Road Pass Pro membership. You have access to the database on overnightrvparking.com, and it's also right there within the Togo app. So on that home screen, you click the button, find overnight RV parking. And these are truly verified locations that the people that work for overnight RV parking actually call a lot of these businesses up. Some of them it says unverified or not, so that it will tell you if it's been verified or not. But you can be relatively certain when you see that a business allows it, that they do, and it says the date that
Yeah.
the last was found and all that sort of stuff. So it's a really great resource as well. So you can get that through the Togo RV app. The Togo RV app is free, but again, you have to be a Road Pass Pro member, which is about $50 a year, and we have a code RVMILES10X to get you $10 off.
Yeah, and we have a couple different codes too. I was going to say that at the end, but since you brought it up now, we do have one for Harvest Hosts, Boondockers Welcome, and the Togo RV app. So we will put those, if you are watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description. If you are doing the podcast version, it will also be in the podcast description, or you can just go over to rvmiles.com/deals. And then in there, we have listed all of the deals that we currently have available to the RV Miles community. And those are in there as well.
The folks that own Road Pass, it's actually just changed hands in the last week. It's actually been sold from Thor Industries. Well, I think they still own a minority stake in it, but a private investment company has bought the majority stake in it. But they also own Campendium. And Campendium has always been one of our favorite sites for finding campgrounds and seeing reviews. But Campendium also lists overnight RV parking spots as well, and they're getting better and better, more thorough with the amount of listings there. But if you want another free resource that is actually pretty thorough, freecampsites.net is a great option that we've used very often. And it's not going to be as verified as the overnight RV parking database, but they do list quite a bit of spots. They do list spots that are not available, so they'll show pretty much every Walmart, and they'll show you if it's a no or a yes. You should still ask management. But they also list on their cheap campsites, like cheap options that might be like $5 or $10 a night. So those are great things to check out as well. It's a little bit of a clunky older website, but we found great spots there.
I think that's how we found the abandoned Idaho State Park, which was one of our favorite places to boondock. It was just right off the highway, but boy, was it spectacular. Just
as when we look at campsites on sites like Campendium and campgroundreviews.com, we're often reading reviews and seeing what people say. So that's another thing about places like Overnight RV Parking and Campendium and freecampsites.net is that it's often very useful to go in and read the reviews. You can see like when people say, oh, it was very hard to get my 43-foot fifth wheel into this parking lot, or the road to this free campsite was 7 miles of washboard. Like, that is the important information for us often to find, especially when you're just looking for a quick overnight. You don't want to deal with 7 miles on a washboard road.
No, you do not.
So none of these websites are going to be comprehensive when it comes to reviews. So it's often nice to just sort of check them all and sort of find the different information that the different ones might have, when the most recent information is, that sort of stuff as well.
All right, so that's our discussion on, is it possible to continue to do overnight parking in 2022? If you have a suggestion, we would love to hear it. You can just head over to the RV Miles Facebook group and share it there, because then you will also be able to let the over 11,000 other members in the group know as well. Sharing is caring.
We'll be back in a moment.
If you've been thinking about picking up a Solo Stove, now is the perfect time. During the off-season, Solo Stove continues to offer discounts on their popular low-smoke fire pits, including our favorite, the Bonfire. RV Miles listeners can save even more money by heading over to rvmiles.com/Solo Stove and using the link and promo code. Take advantage of all the discounts to be had before camping season starts and get your Solo Stove today. rvmiles.com/Solo Stove, and then click the link and use the promo code to save even more.
We are back, and it is time to check the level of those all-important tanks. Jason, what is in your black tank this week?
When I was doing my research for this week's news video, an article came up from the Seacoast Current, and this is something that floored me. Did you know that there are only 5 states in the country where it is illegal to ride in a truck camper, like a slide-in truck camper in the bed of a truck.
Are you sure you didn't misread that? And there are 5 states where it is legal.
There are more states that ban riding in a trailer, although there are many where it is still allowed to. Every state bans you riding in a conventional travel trailer. Several states do allow people to ride in a fifth wheel trailer as long as they have communication, so like walkie-talkies or something. That's a horrible idea.
We are not here to suggest you do any of
And
these
it is
things.
just as horrible to, if not more, to ride in a truck camper. I cannot
can't.
imagine riding in a truck camper.
I would love to know if anyone listening or watching has done that and if they could share the experience of what that was like. That just seems rough. And I feel like I would get motion sickness.
And in a crash, you would be dead.
And in a crash, things would not go well for me.
Yeah.
So I cannot believe that only 5 states in this country are like, maybe not so much. Do you know what 5 states?
No, I
Okay.
do know one is Massachusetts, but I don't know. 2 of them are in New England. I know. that.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay. What is in your fresh tank this week?
We finally got our Starlink set up. We have our Starlink internet. It is on. I have it sitting on the roof of RV right now, and we are getting such fast internet from it.
He is so happy. He is so happy.
It is great. So I'm going to go in a little bit more depth in a YouTube video on this subject, but for power users of RVs, for people who are out on the road quite a bit and who need internet quite a bit, it might be time. It might be time. There were some issues in the past where maybe it was the older version took too much power. There weren't enough satellites, so it was harder to get signal in places where there were trees. You can now, if there are trees, you can still kind of get a signal. You might have to move it to the edge of your campsite, something like that. It is going to have sort of blackout periods, maybe 3 minutes an hour. So I guess, for instance, when I set it up for the first time here in our campsite, we don't have many trees, but there are a couple palm trees, and I set it maybe 5 feet from a palm tree. So it was essentially under it in a way. And we were losing about 2 minutes an hour of internet connection when it was there. Then I threw it up on the roof and we're losing nothing. So it is great for streaming, for downloading things. The kids have been downloading games on the Xbox and they're like, this is amazing. It's so fast.
Priorities.
It is not, however, the ideal solution. We've only had it up and running for 3 or 4 days, but I can tell you right now, it is not the ideal solution for people who are on Zoom calls all day long.
No.
Because you will have dropouts, and a 30-second dropout on a Zoom call is an eternity, especially if you're working for a business where they require you to be there,
Or in the middle of an interview.
They will happen. Exactly. They will happen regularly. They will happen often. And you won't notice them if you're like streaming Netflix because there's buffering involved. You won't really notice them in your general use of the internet. But for streaming type deals, like if we wanted to live stream our Monday Night Live, which we might do in 2 days, I don't know.
What?
I don't know. We were supposed to do it last Monday and we didn't. So.
I know. Okay, we should probably talk about that. We should probably acknowledge that we were supposed to do Monday Night Live. We came back strong in March. We were like, we are here. We've been gone for 6 months. We're back, y'all. And then we'll see you next month. And then somebody Monday night was like, tagged us. Are you guys doing it? And we died a little on the inside.
Oh, why didn't we?
And you know what? There are so many things out here in the world called timers and
set reminders,
calendars and just ways that people organize their lives that for whatever reason we treat as though they're a disease. Well, we don't use them because we don't want to get sick.
We'll get better about that. We do keep a pretty good calendar of where we're camping, so maybe it would be smart to Put on that calendar.
It does. It does have. Yeah. Maybe we'll use the calendar on the wall. So we'll just go back to good old fashioned calendars on the wall.
So sorry if you were waiting for us. Thank you for those of you that mentioned it. We're going to try to do it again at some point this month.
So embarrassing.
Anyway,
Okay, all right.
Anyway, Starlink is great. It's not ideal for those of you that might be in that situation where you do need to have real-time communication with people. We're going to keep other backups for those reasons for sure, and for when we're camping in a lot of trees, because that's still going to be an issue.
Yes.
Okay, what is in your black tank this week?
So my black tank is a pretty serious discussion I just want to have for a second. We have some friends over at Family of Nomads. That's their channel all across social media. And they just came over recently to join YouTube. And they have, Jessica and Deb have over, I think, like 1.5 million subscribers on TikTok, over 150, I do believe, on Instagram. And they're moving into the YouTube sphere. And they're doing over there what they've been doing on these other platforms, which are really incredibly successful reels. They're so good at what they do. I learn from them constantly. And so they joined YouTube, and like what often happens for them, they had a lot of things start to go viral, large viral. I mean, we're talking, over 1 million views on most of the videos and into the hundreds of thousands. And they were just attacked, viciously attacked by the YouTube community. I mean, the comments that were being left, the attacks that were being made against them, the, accusations of how they are with parents and their children. It was disgusting. It was heartbreaking. It was hurtful to them. They were shocked. We all know that in this world that we work in, we 100% know that not everybody is going to love us. Not everybody is going to agree with us, and not everybody is going to understand this lifestyle. That is the responsibility that we take on as content creators, and we own that. But what happened to them was beyond really anything that I have ever seen. And, it infiltrated even into our corner of YouTube, where someone left a comment to us on a walkthrough of our rig about how our kids had it better than their kids. And that to me is unacceptable. I don't know how to, and I don't really believe that anyone listening to this, but maybe I shouldn't say that. I would hope that anyone listening to this does not go out into the world and treat others the way that this family was treated on this platform. Because I don't understand it. And I'm just black tanking, the idea that you can watch something for 15 seconds and think that how those kids feel, that how that family operates. They let you come into their lives to share it. You chose to watch it. And then you decided the best course of action would be to almost abuse this family with your words. I don't understand it.
This is a problem that I've noticed for us too, is with these short videos, the reels that are, they're usually 10 to 15 seconds long. It's just not that this justifies it in any way possible, but it's just hard to, you're not explaining everything in one of those. No. And people will respond, but here are these 400 things that you did wrong.
Yeah.
We're like, no, we thought about that. There's a reason we did it, but we didn't. We're not putting all that information into a 15-second video.
It's very important to remember, we did the other 399 things you're suggesting, but we only had time to show you the one.
Right.
And this is, for good or for bad, right now the way that we as a society want to consume content. We didn't just sit down and all decide, oh, you know what? Everybody has to watch 15 to 30 to 60 second videos now. We didn't decide that as content creators. You, as consumers, decided that. Platforms that we're all on decided that. And so we have to, like everything in life, like how all forms of business work, we have to adapt with the times. And so this is where we're at right now. There are still wonderful outlets for long form, and YouTube is one of those. Is clear that there are some massive growing pains happening over on YouTube because people are used to consuming long form content and they're getting this short form content that YouTube insists that we do. We don't do this like just because we want to. This literally, YouTube is like, you have to do this now in order to continue to have the kind of engagement that we and you want on this platform.
Yeah, it's just adding more negativity to social media, which
Absolutely.
is really, it's obviously it's not good for our society all around.
No, but these platforms are plugging hundreds of millions of dollars into beefing up these short form content. And so I just,
I'm guilty as anyone of watching it. It's just.
Oh, I enjoy it. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. I enjoy these videos. I enjoy the short form content. I find value in it.
But the short stuff, it shouldn't even have a comment section. Just watch it and move on.
I mean, I always do love the people that come in and say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And look, my response will always be, just because you can comment doesn't mean you should. That's the truth.
Yeah, we've complained in the past, and I hate sounding like a complainer when it comes to stuff like social media comments. It is what we open ourselves up to, but it's a big society problem that I think we have to deal with at some point. And it is sad that they had to go through such a severe rash of it.
Yeah, and I just for me, when children are involved and a family is sharing with you, and especially this family that has been able to carve such a joyous existence out of some really hard pasts, that they have been able to do what they have been able to do. When people come after children, and again, yes, the kids are out there, but we are adults and we can refrain and we can enjoy seeing a family live their very best life, even if that does not fall in line with how we live our very best life. We can still watch that, or we can scroll past it. We don't have to be ugly about it.
Exactly.
The end.
What's in your fresh tank?
So my fresh tank this week is a couple of TV show options on Netflix. I'm adding one in here that you don't know about. But the first one is, this doesn't come out until April 16th, but we were able to get a pre-screen of it because this upcoming episode of the America's National Parks podcast will feature an interview with the director and I believe
it's the executive producer and the series producer. And she also directed some of the episodes.
Okay, fantastic. So the documentary is a 5-part series called Our Great National Parks. And it doesn't just focus on U.S. national parks, the National Park Service, but it highlights some of the most beautiful national parks in the world. And it was an incredibly fascinating discussion that you had with them, but it was also just so gorgeous to watch. It is narrated by Barack Obama, and he was an executive producer on the documentary as well. And it is fascinating. There were images like what we have been able to do now with cinematography when it comes to drone shots is just unbelievable.
And things that I've never seen before. I mean, they kick it off with an elephant and a hippo playing in the ocean, which
I didn't know that, elephants went and splashed around in the ocean. But I think what I really liked the most about this was there's a lot of humor interjected into this. They do such a good job of highlighting what we're doing as a community to protect these spaces now and not just constantly hitting us with what needs to be done and the doom and gloom of what could be coming.
Yeah, it's a lot about what's working, and
Yes.
what national parks are doing around the world to protect animals and resources that is actually bringing populations of
Yeah.
animals back. It's great.
I mean, it was great. The writing was excellent. President Obama did a really great job as the narrator. He got me to chuckle several times, which I appreciated. I think sometimes with nature documentaries or wildlife documentaries, they can sometimes get a little monotonous from episode to episode to episode. And this one was really engaging. So that's going to come out on April 16th. You should check it out. But our interview will be out here in the next few days over the weekend or early part of next week. My second recommendation could not be further from our great national parks. And that is also another Netflix original called Is It Cake?
Oh, you're recommending that?
I am going to recommend it because it is the worst, best thing that you need in your life right now.
It is
okay.
So bad, but so good. You're right.
Yes. Like Mikey Day from SNL hosts it. And it's like I told Jason, like one episode in, I said, he is literally like the backup to the backup to the backup to Jim Carrey.
He's
like
so over the top.
It's like they wanted Jim Carrey. They couldn't get Jim Carrey. So then they wanted someone else who was like Jim Carrey, couldn't get him, wanted someone else. Eventually they just landed with Mikey Day.
And
He is. So the whole premise, though, the whole premise is it's just the same group of bakers, very similar to like Great British Baking Show. They're going to go through a series of challenges and someone's going to end up as the winner. But they have to bake items that look like everyday things.
And then judges have to see. They have to see them up, like them against decoys up on podiums and decide which one of them is cake. They're that good that they fool the judges most of the time.
All the time. It is literally the worst, best thing on Netflix right now. And that's saying something. So if you want to just check out and just have, an hour of just what am I watching and why can't I stop watching this, then you want to watch that on Netflix.
That's a good place to end it, I guess.
What a place to leave it. Wow. All right. Well, that is it for this episode of the RV Miles podcast. As a quick reminder, we are all across social media, so please come and find us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. And if you are doing any shopping on Amazon, please take RV Miles with you. Just start at amazon.com/shop/RV Miles. Thank you again for listening. Please continue to stay healthy, enjoy the spring, and keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody.